Welcome back to Literature of the Ancient Near East. I'm Dr. Justin Singleton. Having gone through our 2-week introduction to this course, we now move on to an introduction to Mesopotamian literature. Now, some of this may seem a bit redundant, as we've talked about this period of history in a broad way in earlier lectures, but I'm jumping into things a little bit deeper with this lecture, setting the stage for Mesopotamian literature before discussing that literature and its effects on later writings. Mesopotamian literature stands as one of the earliest and most influential literary traditions in human history, offering profound insights into the intellectual, religious, and moral lives of ancient societies. Emerging in the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, it serves as a window into the ancient world, offering a rich corpus of texts that continue to shape modern understandings of human civilization. This lecture explores the historical context, the key works, and the enduring legacy of Mesopotamian literature, focusing on its influence on later cultures and its eventual decline following the fall of the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 539 BC. The emergence of writing in Mesopotamia marked a revolutionary step in human history, facilitating the transition from oral traditions to written records. Mesopotamian civilization, particularly in the southern regions, was at the forefront of this innovation. Most of the major civilizations that followed the Sumerians were also literate, although the extent of literary production varied. These civilizations, including the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians, all built upon the foundations laid by the Sumerians, adapting their practices and extending the use of writing for both administrative and cultural purposes. Now, as noted before, the Sumerians were not a unified nation or empire, but rather a collection of city-states located in the land of Sumer, situated in southern Mesopotamia. Each city-state functioned as its own political and religious entity, with its own ruler and governing system. Among these early cities, Uruk was especially prominent. Uruk's significance lies not only in its role as a major urban center, but also in its innovations, which would influence the broader region. During the late Chalcolithic period, Uruk exemplified the shift from small agricultural communities to larger urban settlements. The city's ingenuity during this period included advances in urbanization, the development of irrigation systems, and the invention of the wheel. These innovations carried over into the early Bronze Age, facilitating further growth and complexity within the city. Other important Sumerian cities, such as Nippur, Larsa, Adab, and Eridu, were also centers of culture and governance. In the northern region, cities like Ebla, Nabada, Nagar, and Mari contributed to the broader cultural landscape of Mesopotamia. Each city, while distinct, shared certain cultural and technological advances, many of which were centered around urban life, governance, and trade. Urbanization during the late Chalcolithic period brought significant changes to the structure of society. People began living together in larger communities under the protection and governance of rulers, leading to the rise of cities as centers of power and culture. As a result of this urbanization, agricultural practices became more specialized. While farmers continued to live on the periphery of the cities, a clear separation between urban life and agricultural life emerged. In urban areas, people began to focus on specialized tasks rather than engaging in subsistence farming. One family might focus on producing clothing, another on pottery, and others on goods that the city needed. This specialization allowed for more efficient production and distribution, as goods could be created more effectively by skilled artisans. Specialization in agriculture also led to the development of secondary goods that were important for urban life. For example, farmers began producing nutrient-rich beer from barley and wheat, which was not only a staple food item, but also had significant cultural and religious importance. Additionally, farmers developed new techniques in animal breeding, improving yields of wool for the textile industry, which was essential for clothing production. These advancements contributed to the growth of Mesopotamian cities, fostering both economic and social complexity. Now, with this shift toward urbanization and specialization, the need for writing became increasingly important. Writing in Mesopotamia, originally developed for the practical purposes such as recording trade transactions, taxation, and administrative matters, began to evolve into a tool for preserving cultural, legal, and religious traditions. The Sumerians' early use of writing, particularly in the form of cuneiform, would be expanded upon by later civilizations, influencing the development of Mesopotamian literature. Now, writing allowed for the recording of myths, epics, and legal codes, and it became an essential part of the intellectual life of the region. It's in this context of urbanization, specialization, and the development of writing that the foundations of Mesopotamian literature were laid, providing a rich cultural heritage that would influence generations to come. Now, the invention of writing, or the advent of writing, I should say, rather than the invention, the advent of writing around 3200 BC marked a transformative moment in human history, shaping the trajectory of civilization. Writing allowed for the systematic management of increasingly complex societies. Over time, however, it evolved into a tool for literary and philosophical expression. The Sumerians used cuneiform, a wedge-shaped script pressed into clay tablets. This early script soon expanded to include the recording of religious texts, legal codes, and mythological tales. Cuneiform was not only a medium for writing in Sumerian, it was adapted for use in multiple languages, including Akkadian, Hittite, and Elamite. Its durability ensured that text would survive millennia, allowing modern scholars to study a wealth of material ranging from mundane records to epic poetry. Now, unlike papyrus, which was used in Egypt, clay tablets could endure for centuries, preserving the intellectual legacy of Mesopotamia for future generations. The socio-cultural and religious landscapes of Mesopotamia were complex and deeply intertwined, with writing serving as a key medium for both preserving and shaping these dimensions of society. While the Sumerians were the pioneers of urban civilization and written culture in Mesopotamia, the Akkadians, a northern Semitic people, soon followed suit, adapting many of the practices established by the Sumerians. As the Akkadians rose to prominence, they embraced Sumerian innovations in urbanization, governance, and religious practices, while also imposing their own language and cultural practices on the region. The Akkadians' most significant achievement was their unification of northern and southern Mesopotamia under a single empire. This was made possible by the military and administrative genius of Sargon, the founder of the empire. Sargon's conquest of Sumer in the 24th century BC marked the creation of the world's first superpower, a formidable political entity that extended across much of Mesopotamia. Interestingly, although the Akkadians were Semitic in origin, their conquest of Sumer was legitimized through the endorsement of the Sumerian patron god Enlil. At least according to Akkadian records, the priest of Enlil declared that the god had granted victory to the Akkadians, thereby solidifying their rule over the Sumerian heartland. This religious and cultural continuity helped ease the transition between the Sumerians and the Akkadians, ensuring that the Sumerian traditions and beliefs remained central to Mesopotamian society, even under new leadership. With Akkadian rule came a number of cultural and administrative reforms that contributed to the continued development of Mesopotamian civilization. Among these reforms were the introduction of standardized measurements and a new dating system, both of which streamlined record keeping and administration. These innovations enabled the Akkadians to manage their vast empire more efficiently and laid the foundation for future administrative practices in the region. One of the most significant changes brought about by the Akkadians was the adaptation of the Sumerian cuneiform scripts. The Akkadian language, a Semitic language, differed significantly from Sumerian in both structure and vocabulary, necessitating adjustments to the cuneiform scripts. By around 2350 BC, the Akkadians had developed a modified version of the script that was better suited to their language. This new form of cuneiform allowed the Akkadians to continue the Sumerian tradition of written records while accommodating the linguistic differences of their own people. The influence of Akkadian cuneiform extended far beyond the borders of the Akkadian Empire. As the Akkadian language and culture spread throughout Mesopotamia, so too did its writing system. Cuneiform, originally developed by the Sumerians, was adopted by later civilizations, including the Babylonians and Assyrians, who wrote in dialects derived from Akkadian. These dialects, which evolved into Old, Middle, and Neo-Babylonian and Assyrian forms, used the Akkadian cuneiform script as their writing medium. The script also spread to other regions, influencing cultures as far afield as the Hittites, Eblites, Aramaeans, Hurrians, Aratians, and Elamites. In this way, cuneiform became a trans-regional script that connected various cultures in the ancient Near East. Just give me a quick moment. The other scripts you see here were not created yet. That's just shows you later, like later in time when they popped up. Just so you know, Egyptian hieroglyphics are the exception to that. Now, despite the differences in language, the shared use of cuneiform writing allowed for a degree of cultural continuity across Mesopotamian and neighboring civilizations. The script was even transmitted to Egypt, where it was used in some diplomatic correspondences, though the Egyptians had their own system of writing. Now, despite these advances, the history of Mesopotamian writing was not without interruptions. During periods of invasions and political instability, such as during the reign of the Kassites, records became scarce, and the continuity of writing and cultural practices was threatened. The Kassites, who ruled Babylonia for several centuries, left little in the way of written records, marking a dark age in the history of Mesopotamian literature and administration. I was supposed to click this. Dark Age. There you go. See the Dark Age? No, forgive me. Nonetheless, the resilient nature of the cuneiform script ensured that even during periods of disruption, the legacy of Mesopotamian literature continued to influence the broader ancient world. Thus, the religious, political, and cultural context of Mesopotamia was deeply intertwined with the development of writing. From the Sumerians to the Akkadians and beyond, the ability to record and preserve knowledge in writing enabled the continuity of ideas, traditions, and governance across centuries. The Akkadian adaptation of Sumerian practices and the spread of cuneiform throughout the ancient Near East helped shape the literary, legal, and religious traditions that defined Mesopotamia. Literature in Mesopotamia served a variety of functions, ranging from moral instruction to the reinforcement of political power. For instance, texts often conveyed religious teachings, offering guidance on how to live in harmony with the gods. Wisdom literature, in particular, was central to the intellectual life of Mesopotamians. These works provided practical advice for living a virtuous life, with emphasis placed on virtues such as humility, diligence, and respect for authority. A scribe, who was trained in a specialized school known as an ediba, played an essential role in the transmission of knowledge. Scribes not only recorded literary works, but also preserved ancient traditions, ensuring that the wisdom of past generations would be passed down to future ones. Literature, therefore, was not just a form of entertainment or intellectual exploration, but was a social reproductive strategy, that is, a means of preserving societal values and beliefs across generations. The corpus of Mesopotamian literature includes a diverse range of genres, from the mythological epics to legal codes, each offering unique insights into the civilization's values, beliefs, and concerns. Among the most famous works are, of course, the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Enuma Elish, both of which explore timeless themes such as mortality, divine justice, and the quest for wisdom. However, Mesopotamian literature also encompassed lesser-known works such as lamentations and hymns, which provided nuanced perspectives on the emotional and spiritual life of the ancient world. Religious and mythological texts form the backbone of Mesopotamian literature, addressing fundamental questions about creation, the nature of the divine, and the relationship between gods and humans. One of the most famous of these works is the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, which tells the story of the rise of the god Marduk. This epic illustrates the cosmic battle between order and chaos, as Marduk defeats the primordial goddess Tiamat and creates the world from her body. The Enuma Elish not only served to legitimize the rule of Marduk in Babylon, but also reinforced the idea of divine order in the cosmos. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest and most significant works of literature, chronicles the adventures of Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, as he searches for immortality. The Sumerian Akkadian epic grapples with profound questions about the meaning of life, the nature of friendship, and the inevitability of death. Through its exploration of these universal themes, the Epic of Gilgamesh remains one of the most influential works in world literature. Hymns and prayers dedicated to various gods and goddesses, such as Ishtar, Shamash, and Enlil, also feature prominently in Mesopotamian literature. These texts reveal the deep spirituality of the Mesopotamian people, illustrating their devotion and desire for divine favor. Many of these works also reflect the belief that the gods controlled all aspects of life, from the harvest to the fate of the king. Wisdom literature in Mesopotamia, exemplified by works such as the Instructions of Shuruppak and the Dialogue of Pessimism, offers moral and philosophical guidance. These texts often take the form of proverbs or dialogues in which the speaker imparts lessons about the nature of human existence, the importance of virtue, and the inevitability of death. The Dialogue of Pessimism, for example, explores the futility of human endeavor and concludes that death is the only certainty. These works reveal a society deeply engaged with existential questions in the human condition. Proverbs, such as those found in the Instructions of Shuruppak, emphasize practical virtues like humility, honesty, and respect for one's elders. These teachings were central to the ethical framework of Mesopotamian society, offering wisdom that was intended to guide people in their everyday lives. Mesopotamian literature also included historical and legal texts, which provide valuable insights into the political and social structures of the civilization. The Code of Hammurabi, One of the most famous legal documents from the ancient world consists of 282 judicial verdicts that cover a wide range of topics, from property rights to criminal justice. The code emphasizes the importance of divine justice, as Hammurabi is portrayed as receiving the authority to create his laws from the god Shamash. The principles of retribution and fairness embedded in the code would influence later legal systems throughout the ancient Near East. In addition to legal text, royal inscriptions and chronicles document the deeds of kings and the military campaigns that shaped Mesopotamian history. These texts not only serve as records of historical events, but also as tools of political propaganda, portraying kings as divinely chosen leaders who maintain cosmic order through their rule. The impact of Mesopotamian literature extends far beyond its time, influencing neighboring cultures, later intellectual traditions, and even modern religious thoughts. Its ideas about divine justice, the struggle between order and chaos, and the moral and ethical implications of human behavior have left a lasting imprint on subsequent civilizations. Mesopotamian myths and religious ideas spread across the ancient Near East, influencing cultures such as the Hittites, Canaanites, and the Persians. The Hittites, for example, adopted the cuneiform script and used it to write their own myths and legal codes, many of which show clear parallels to the Mesopotamian traditions. Canaanite myths, in particular those involving Baal, contain clear correlations to Marduk. The Persian Empire, which succeeded Mesopotamia as the dominant power in the region, also drew on Mesopotamian intellectual traditions, incorporating themes of divine justice and cosmic order into their own religious and legal frameworks. Now, some suggest that Mesopotamian literature even influenced Hebraic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The flood narrative in the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example, bears striking similarities to the biblical story of Noah, suggesting a shared cultural heritage or social memory, rather than borrowing. Wisdom literature also has similarities with the Abrahamic traditions. The moral lessons embedded in Mesopotamian works, like the instructions of Shurappak, can be seen in the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes of the Hebrew Bible. As will be discussed later in this series, on the converse, the theme of cosmic struggle between order and chaos found in Mesopotamian myths is completely absent in the creation story of the Hebrew Bible, the events instead occurring through the mere spoken word of God. Also, rather than the idea of law as a divine mandate, central to Mesopotamian legal codes, in Hebraic tradition, law is given directly from God. Mesopotamian literature also played a role in shaping the intellectual traditions of ancient Greece. The themes of heroism, mortality, and the search for wisdom found in works like the Epic of Gilgamesh influenced Greek tragedies and epics. Additionally, the philosophical inquiries found in Mesopotamian wisdom literature laid the groundwork for later Greek philosophy, particularly the work of thinkers such as Heraclitus and Pythagoras, who explored themes of cosmic balance and the nature of existence. The decline of Mesopotamian literature coincided with the fall of the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 539 BC. Following the conquest of Babylon by the Persian king Cyrus the Great, cuneiform literacy began to fade as Aramaic became the lingua franca of the Achaemenid Empire. This shift in language and political power marked the beginning of the end for Mesopotamian literary traditions. As new empires rose to prominence, the intellectual center of the ancient world shifted away from Mesopotamia, and many of the texts and traditions that had once flourished were gradually forgotten. However, the rediscovery of Mesopotamian literature in the 19th century through archaeological excavations and the decipherment of cuneiform has revived interest in these ancient traditions. Today, Mesopotamian texts continue to be studied. Mesopotamian literature, from its early beginnings to the eventual decline, represents a cornerstone of human intellectual and cultural history. Its enduring influence on subsequent civilizations, religious traditions, and intellectual thought underscores its lasting significance. By exploring the myths, wisdom literature, and legal texts of ancient Mesopotamia, we gain not only a deeper understanding of the ancient world, but also valuable insights into the universal questions that continue to shape human experience. Through its rediscovery and study, Mesopotamian literature remains a timeless source of inspiration and reflection. Now, I'm sure that you're all excited to get into the actual reading of Mesopotamian literature, so I'm just going to let you jump right into it. As always, feel free to reach out to me with any questions or comments.